we're going to get to the questions. I know you have some questions, so I'll take those. Yeah, okay. Now we'll have discussion. So, with that, what are your questions?
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. So, we don't have a second sheet. This is based on you raising your hand. So, Dave Okada has a microphone and Maddie has a microphone. So, who would like to ask the first question? Okay, Dr.
We'll do the exercise. Let's get the exercise.
At your last institution, towards the end, you had a net negative support coming from the state. Do you see that as a trend across academia and it's coming through as well? And how did you deal with crushing declines in the sources?
What a great question. Fantastic question, because, you know, I do think it's a trend. In fact, I know it's a trend. When I went to school, when I went to a pretty good school as an undergraduate, I paid no tuition. It was a state university. I was going to pay tuition, right? So if you were good enough to get in, you were good enough to go there for free. That ended quickly when we got a governor named Ronald Reagan, and we started paying tuition. So that is a trend that's been going on for 40 years. And it's not going to go back. You may see fluctuations, you may see ease, but it's not going to get put back in the bottom. At the university that I was at most recently, Nicholls State University, about 15 years ago, the state paid about 75% of the freight for the cost, and the students paid about 25%. When I left, it was exactly reversed. The state paid about 25%, in fact, a little bit less than 25%, and the students paid about 75% and increasing. That's terrible. I agonized over that, and I told our legislators, I told everybody I could tell that I want to hold the ground on tuition and fees rate. I don't think that students have to pay more. You look in their eyes. They want to go to school. They want to make themselves better. They want to participate in this. And so the only thing I think that a president can do is be that voice, be that spokesperson for higher education. I'm in higher education because I'm passionate about it. I'm in higher education because I believe in higher education. I think that higher education, particularly public higher education, is the only way we're going to solve a lot of the problems that we have in our country and in the world. So what I do is I talk to the legislators. I go to their places and talk to them. I invite them to my university and I talk to them. I try to get them around students because that's the best salespeople that we have. I go out to the local community, to the Rotaries and Kiwanis and civic groups and anywhere I will go. And I've developed a kind of certain presentations to do that. When I first started, I thought that the answer was to get them to understand that education is important. And what I found that there are a lot of, what do you want to call them, myths, misconceptions. I started saying lies, but I got somebody that told me don't tell them lies. So what are these? I'll give you an example. In Louisiana, look, and I went back and looked, and I said, well, the price of oil is down around $40 a barrel and you're cutting. But when the price of oil was $100 a barrel and you were cutting it, it's not about oil. It's about values. And I put that into the presentation, and I would tell them that. And there's a lot of things like that. I was also trying to explain, as you, I talked to the choir here, I know that, but that someone who has a college degree will earn twice the amount of somebody that doesn't over the course of their lifetime, regardless of field. You know, you look at any field, you say, well, if you're an engineer, you're going to earn more than an artist. Maybe you will, but if you're an artist with a degree, you're going to earn twice as much as an artist without a degree, and an engineer twice as much as one without. So you know, just so you know, you're going to have all the stuff that we all know about, you know, less incarceration, better health care, all that stuff. So much benefit to that, and I would tell that every chance I got. Then I thought my role would be to try to get the legislator to give us more appropriations. And I found out that that was beating my head against the wall, because exactly to your point, that's a national trend. They don't want to do it. You've got to do other things. And so finally what I found that I started to get a little bit of traction with was I started to point out what are some things that get in the way. So for example, and you mentioned it, the last 2 years that I was at Nicholls State, we gave more money back to the state in mandated costs. In other words, there's things like insurance and retirement for the K-12 teachers and stuff like that. We had, my favorite one was audits. We didn't ask for audits. We couldn't go find our own auditor. They sent the auditors down and sent us the bill. So we gave more money back than we got. And so when I talk that around, I go around to the community, everybody goes, you kidding? You're kidding. That's something that I got a legislator to take on and try to figure out some way to ameliorate that. And it was not, well, you don't have to do it. It was somewhere like, well, you can put that money, that excess, into deferred maintenance. We'll let you put that in deferred maintenance instead of giving it back to us. So a little bit of relief there. You've got to hit the edges. The other thing, for example, I found that the campus police, we had campus police that did everything that all other police did. And they made arrests, they did drug busts, they ran rape cases, they did all that stuff that other police do, but they got incredibly low wages for that. So I was asking, I said, don't make them the state police, but take some of the money that we have a very well-funded state police, give them some of that money. So you got to look for what are some things you can do that aren't directly at that big loudspeaker thing about more money. But I think number one is advocate for what does higher education do. There's some misconceptions, and since this group is what this group is, there's some people out there that think that faculty, you get 5 months off for summer, you come in, 2 hours a week, and you spout poetic for a couple of minutes and you leave. That's what they think it is. They don't understand the committee, they don't understand the work, they don't understand the work you put on in your education. I've had fairly pointed discussions with legislators about that. And about retirements and about other kinds of things that the president has to do that, okay? And then you have to enlist others to do it too, because they all expect the president to do that. If I go up and say, I support higher education, the legislators are going to say, of course you do, look where you are. But if I can talk to the business community, if I can talk to the influential people in the community and say, listen, here's what's happening, here's what this institution is doing for your business. Here's what we're doing to make sure that you have a workforce that's going to be there, that you have professional people that can look at a problem and solve it, work with others, and all that stuff. If you can do that, then you get them talking. So when they're talking to their favorite legislator or their governor or whoever they're talking to, then they advocate for it. So the big part is on the president, but a big part is having the president have other people do the part. Long answer. Important question.
Thank you, Dr. Burton. Do we have another question from the audience?
I'll ask another one.
Okay, since nobody else.
Okay, so I don't want to be offensive, but it looked to me like you did a great job in Louisiana. Well, why did you leave? If you come here, I want you to stay. It's quite a question, but I have to ask.
I left Louisiana because I felt like I do better, more contributing at some other institution. All of those, what I've explained to you, sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. And if you're not getting the payoff, if you're not getting the response, if you're getting legislators that tell you that they don't believe in higher education, and I have legislators tell me that, you start to say, is this the place that I want to try to continue to butt my head against the wall, or do I want to go someplace else? So I made the decision I would go someplace else. I see this as a great opportunity. I talked to a very senior person in the Guam government this morning, and I came away from that very satisfied that the condition is better, that there is more of an acceptance, that people do understand that they're just a strap for money, but maybe we can help them figure that out. Maybe we can look for other sources as well.
Okay, is there another question from the audience? One, okay, gentleman in front.
Hi, so based off of that last question, I'm just wondering, so if you said you wanted to go to another institution, I was wondering what attracted you particularly to this position at the University of Guam? What was the inspiration for this is the institution that I want to go to next after it's closed?
Okay, first of all, a lot of it's timing. So you had an opening for a president right now, and I'm looking for a presidency. So part of that is timing. So there's a number of institutions there. And so I looked at it and said, what can I do? What can I make a difference? I look at an institution, and I've always done this, whether I was the president or chief academic officer or even a dean or whatever. What are the gems? What do we have that we can leverage? I think that the University of Guam has a lot of things. I think there are programs that we had a pretty good, let's say pretty good marine biology gang at Nicholas State University, and we were the closest university to the coast, the southern coast of Louisiana, so that helped. And there was a research place down there. That's great, but look what we've got here. Look at what you've got here. Look at the research that can be done here. And I think, and I know we're doing a lot already, but I think that the work can go out even more to leverage that, to make that a destination for not only for students, of course, you want to attract students, but for internationally known scholars. And we're doing that already, but we need to do more of it. And I think that that's part of what we need to do. The program in Smart Studies, okay? That's unique. That is unique. You saw that my scorecard, you see my report card that I showed earlier in the presentation from the website? How many are on that website, by the way? Anybody else on the website? Yeah, okay. Do you know how many people are on that website? Any guesses? 7,800. There are 7,800 people, most of them like me, that aren't from here, that went to that and found it somehow, and they're on there. Okay? They have an interest. And when you look at the history, when you look at the mythology, when you look at the different aspects that this single institution on this island has to present to the world, it's incredible. 7,800 people, and you look at it, except where they're from, and most of them are not from Guam. Some are from Guam, sure, but most of them are not from Guam. They have some interest. Well, the trick is, here's the trick in higher education, in case you didn't know this already. The trick is to take somebody's interest and develop that into a passion. And so you take a student that's curious about why do chemicals go together, and you make them a chemist. You take some students that are curious about why do words sound good, and you make them a literature major, and you make them a poet. Okay, so that's what attracted me here. There are certain things, I think there are opportunities. Those opportunities don't exist everywhere. I think the singular isolation, I think, to me, was attractive. I've traveled before. You saw what I had. I've been overseas. I've worked with other cultures in other languages. I've tried my best to learn those languages, and so it's not scary to me. Okay, it's not scary. I've been to other places. My wife in other places. She always finds all the good stuff and tells me about it. So that was the main attraction.
Great, thank you, Dr. Murphy. Is there any other questions from the audience?
Thank you. So, to follow up on your answer, I work at the Learning Lab. I'm a faculty there. So I wanted to know what is your position on supporting research? There's the University of Guam, in addition to having teaching faculty, also has research faculty. And right now, most of our research is funded by NSF, basically state-funded grants. But those grants also require the university to give a part to participate and to help develop the research that in the longer term than the grant itself. So I was wondering, what is your view on this, and how do you think you can help us continue making Guam the scientific hub in the region?
Well, I think research, all universities exist to conduct research. And so every faculty member has a responsibility to do research in their own field. So we have that level of research, and I always call that mission-appropriate research. It's kind of a code, but I got it. The high-level, intense research that you're talking about, I think is the kind of thing that can separate an institution. Let me tell you, have you ever heard of Marilyn Children? Have you ever heard of Marilyn? Probably not. Have you ever ate an oyster? Okay, probably so. She developed a process for pasteurizing oysters at Nicholls State University. Okay, and so this is something that little Nicholls State, that you've never heard of, gave to the world. Okay, and so, well, one of the side benefits, whenever we have a big event, the oyster industry always gives us tons and tons of oysters. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is that somebody in their field can do this. And so I think the university has to do everything it can within its mission, within its budget, to support that. And I would definitely support that level of research. I have particularly the biologists, I have maybe a soft spot in my heart for the biologists. I'm not one. I was an English major, so maybe about as far as you can get away. But they really come up with some great stuff, and they engage students in a way. There is such an interest in marine biology and biology in general now in the country. I was talking to a colleague of mine who's the president of a community college in North Carolina, and he looks at my name tag and goes, "Oh, you're at Nicholls." And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And he said, "My daughter she's a graduate student at Nicholls. She undergrad at Clemson, and she was attracted to the faculty at Nicholls in biology." And that's the power That's the power that providing the access for faculty members to conduct the research they need to do, that will attract students from faraway places, from great universities, hopefully the great students from great universities to come do the research and go back or even stay here and continue that. So I'm very pro research. And I'm pro research for everybody, for all faculty. I think sometimes we don't do what we ought to do. We don't and maybe it's because we don't have the time, or maybe we don't have the research time built into our schedules. And that's one of the things I've always tried to appreciate and try to support. That do we have enough time to do mission appropriate research in the institution? Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Any other questions from the audience? One last call. Question.
Okay, and I'm not gonna let it go. So.
Okay.
As you just mentioned, okay, we have great research institutions at Weary, at Marine Lab, Tropical Agriculture. Your last comment, how do we get a bigger research focus to the rest of the campus? Those of us who are primarily teachers, but still have our heart in research. How do you?
One person, not even the president, is going to do that. So it's going to take a team effort. Remember what I said about leadership, the team sport. And so it's going to take everybody. And I would start with the academic side and how do we look at what work do we do and how do we divide the way it ought to be. I'm not expert enough yet to know if it is or it isn't. But I've been other places where we've had that, we've taken that on, and we've looked at the schedule and said, you want to have a research-heavy schedule? Maybe this semester you can. You need to go do a sabbatical and go find out what's up. Maybe you can. And so we build that into the whole hiring scheme. We build that into the whole agenda, and that's how we do it. I'll give you. I was at the Air University for a while. We had a great faculty, and we had a lot of terminally degree folks, and they were always wanting to do more research and things like that. And then we sent out some kind of, I forget what it was, some kind of questionnaire about what do you think your workload ought to be, what do you think you ought to spend time, what do you think you ought to do. And somehow there was that same time frame, it was either like a month or so, the Chronicle had something in there about certain questions and how they are answered at different schools. And it turned out that the answers that my faculty gave were typical of a community college. And so I went back to them and said, listen, I got it that you want to be great teachers. You have to be great teachers. That's part of the deal. But you also have to engage in some sort of research. And you also have to engage in some sort of service. And if you're not, then you're not a faculty that is typical of a university. Nothing wrong with that. But there are certain things that are expected of a university faculty that we want to support and strive to. That handle it? Okay, 2 thumbs up. Hey.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Any other questions?
Are they ready for the exercise yet? No.
Well, if there's
So let me tell you about the exercise. I won't do it because, the room doesn't give itself to it. But imagine this. I have these prepared. I have a couple hundred of them. But, so this is a card, and it just has a line on it. And my question was going to be that we have articulated a good to great program. Imagine it's 5 years from now. What one thing that we don't have now would you see in 5 years if we truly were going to great? And everybody would do that individually. Okay? Everybody would do it individually. Then I'd tell you to find another person. And then I'd prepare cards. And then I'd say, grade that. I'll give you 5 points to do it. But, no, not now. We're not going to do it. We're just talking about it. This is the fact. They can comment on this. Sorry. So then you give with one other person. So you prepare cards, and you say, I give you 5 points between the cards. So you say, well, yours is pretty good, but mine's better. Yours is really, really good. We'll give you 4. I'll take 1. So you put a 4 and a 1 there. Then you give it to other people. People look at that answers, and they do the same thing. You do that, it takes about 15 minutes. When you come back, the cards that have a 25 on it, those are the things you want to do. The cards that have a 3, not so much. But think about what that does. Think about that. We had about 3 or 4 people in here that spoke up. That's fine. But in a situation where you want to find out everybody's answer, I have found that many of these kinds of events, forums, whatever you want to call them, some people talk and some people don't talk. They have something inside, but they don't say it. This gives everybody a chance to be represented. There are ways of doing this much more sophisticated than Murphy's cards. Okay, there are electronic ways of doing this, can be done very quickly. We can find out things like, we talked about what's the vision, we talked about those kind of things. We can get the group answer. And then when you have that, when you have the group answer, when you survey, 50,000 Guamanians about the value of the university, and you go up to the legislator and you say, I think we ought to have more money, and they go, I don't think we should. Oh, really? Because most of your constituents think we should. Okay, so that's the power of some things like that. Maybe next time. What else? Any other questions? Now you're wrapped, Norman.
All right. Last call for questions. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. There is a survey that is going to be available, and you can complete it up until Saturday, June 16th. Thank you, everybody.
Not so sure I like a paragraph that has Monkey and Murphy in the same line. You good?
Now it's working. Read the whole time. Come on, man. How to do this morning? All right. I don't know. OBS is kind of.
So they have an 11
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's, we're using the black magic to capture flies. And I'm not sure if the driver or using the first practices on a Mac. I'm not sure if it works better with
With
PC.
PC, maybe it works better on PC.
But yeah, but it's doing okay right now.
Okay,
We just
good.
had a little hiccup in the beginning.
It's good to give them. We're doing a Facebook Live too, but then when we post all the videos to YouTube, so people can watch. Some of them prefer this one to the Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. I want to link it and put it like maybe 2 rows. Link it. This one has a lot of battery.
Connect the toggle switch 710 nearby and press its link button to link them together.
Link.
There's battery on that one?
Yeah.
That one don't need battery because it's plugged. We're not gonna lose this? Next to the camera?
No, right there. No, right there.
I have a feeling this will walk away, but let's just wait.
Put it on the remote.
That's something that's.
The last time I was here, they had a suicide prevention awareness battle, so I went to that. Oh, no, it was just that they had to change suicide. That feels like we're back in a university. Yes, they had
What's the biggest stadium on the block? Big stadium?
No, they're giving him a few minutes to rest. Because he has to.
Oh, because he's doing this.
Remember from my proposal, it was like every 4 by 7. So that one cutting you said for 2 months before it started to subpopulation group that's been there longer than so wherever they ancestors.
I did. Okay. And this whole schedule.
Nobody knows. I think it has to be somewhere. Further west.
Everybody's.
China. Could even be Indonesia. There's no name site there. Or that could be east. There's no site east. Maybe you could have come maybe into a pretty
No, these cameras.
I'm excited to meet that intro, so using the psychiatrist as much as it'd be fun to hang out with.
But these are all yours.
Oh, yes. Well, we have a department.
Yeah.
Basically, our
Vince was interested too,
So, yeah,
he was looking around the nursery with me yesterday.
they talk about, kid shipping and team sport. This is all Troy, everybody comes together.
Little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I heard him, I just follow all of you, I didn't follow all of
No, there it is.
That sounds yeah.
something about how we.
I also checked, I also checked. The tweets are over.
Wednesday, we're Mike and Nichols used to have Friday. We got the mayor. We got property.
I was kind of.
I think I'll not do the exercise. I think I'll not do the. In fact, I wouldn't the sheep that down.
I think we're never sure about those.
Can they blank screen it real quick?
Looking for some varieties down there.
No, like the ones, yeah, oh, yeah. I just don't come off from.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to begin our next forum in just a couple of minutes. And Brian, just give me the go ahead. Brian, is it? Buenas and half a day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Morgan Analista. I'm the Director for Development and Alumni Affairs, and I'm the staffer for the Presidential Search Committee. And before we begin this afternoon's presentation, I want to recognize the presence of Annie Camacho, who is the President of the Student Government Association. Welcome, Annie. And this session is for our students, alumni, and staff. And ladies and gentlemen, how about a warm holiday to Dr. Bruce Murphy, who, as you know, is a finalist for the position of President of the University of Guam. Dr. Murphy will briefly introduce himself to you, and after that time, we are going to open the floor for questions from the audience. And in the interest of time, we'd like to ask that everybody limit their question to 2 minutes. I also want to mention that there will be a survey that you can fill out after this afternoon's presentation where you can provide feedback, and that survey link will be put on the screen shortly afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dr. Bruce Murphy.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bruce Murphy. You know, any theater majors here? No theater majors? No? Well, good, then I can talk about theater majors. Then I'm here. So there was this theater major that was, he was a senior, and he tried to be in all the plays ever since freshman year. And he always said, come in to play, he auditioned, he was not good enough. He never made it into the play. So here it was, senior year, last semester, last chance. Goes up to the director, he says, can I be in the play? Director's feeling pretty sorry for him, says, okay, you can be in the play. And he gives him his line, he has one line. and he has a line that says, "Hark, I hear the cannons roar." So he's going to practice his lines and study his lines. He's going, "Hark, I hear the cannons roar. Hark, I hear the cannons roar. Hark, I hear the cannons roar. Hark, I hear the cannons roar." He's studying. Finally, opening night comes. He's on stage. The curtains open. Bam! He goes, "What the hell is that?" So you've got to contextualize your learning. I thought of that yesterday, or actually the day before on Monday, when we came in and we were at the airport and we're coming up to the Customs and Immigration Officer, and I had studied. I had studied my lines. I was all ready. And I said, "Half a day?" And he said, "Half a day." So I got the message that I wasn't speaking it right. Okay, I tried my part, but I wasn't quite good enough. But, so to everybody, half a day. I did go on the website. Does anybody else go on this website? We got one there. With the one there. Okay, pretty good. I'm a level 1. I am a level 1. Believe it or not, I am a level 1. So there's hope for all of us. Okay. Okay. I want to introduce my wife, Jean. Jean's right here. I put some of this stuff up there because it's a package deal. You know, if you get me, you get Jean too. That's probably the best part of the package, but that's okay. So she's done a lot of stuff. She's a career Army nurse. She has been on the U.S. Olympic Committee. She led the Paralympic team, the United States Paralympic team, into the stadium for the Paralympic Games in 2004 in Athens, Greece. She's worked a variety of different things. Well, all of that has helped her, and so when she was the first lady at Nicholls State University, she worked with students, she worked with faculty, she worked with staff, a lot of different programs, and so she was kind of the go-to person. She was not a paid employee, but she did a lot of stuff from a volunteer basis, and she really was a part of the community. So I want to thank her publicly for all of that, and just let you know that that's some of the stuff that she does. I thought, before we start asking questions, just to give you something to think about and chew on, I want to tell you a little bit about my leadership philosophy. It might answer some of your questions, or it might cause you to ask some more questions. So this is not 2 tablets written in stone up here. This is just a PowerPoint. So you don't have to agree with everything or anything. This is just my philosophy of leadership. So I've got a couple of points. I'm going to tell you how I define leadership, and then I'm going to say that I think leadership is a team sport, and why I think it is. That leaders are managers and managers are leaders. And strategic planning is very critical. And finally, celebrate success and own the shortfalls. So my notion of leadership, I think that leadership, everybody got a definition of leadership. They're all different, that's okay. My definition is that leadership is a process. It's a process of influencing human behavior. That's what leaders do. They influence human behavior. For good, for bad, for indifferent, but they influence human behavior. To accomplish goals, I think it has to be goal-driven. And to the goal, which goals? The goals of the organizationally appointed leader. So there it is all written out. That's my definition of leadership. I've used that for many, many years. It's helped me to look at leadership situations. It's helped me look at good leaders, bad leaders, and the ones in between. It's been very useful. It also, from that definition, lets me talk about management. If leadership is influencing human behavior, what is management? Change one word, non-human behavior. That's not even a word, but in other words, things. So managers deal with things, leaders work with people, okay? Now, it's not 2 different people because, as I said before, leaders are managers and managers are leaders. So somebody who you say, oh, that's a leader, that person is a leadership position, they also do some management, right? They have to worry about budgets. They have to worry about schedules. They have to worry about inventory. But they're doing mostly leadership. And managers, who you say, oh, they're in charge of managing things, they also have to talk about counseling. They also have to talk about relationships. They also have to talk about encouraging the soul. Okay? So managers are leaders, leaders are managers. Not 2 different people, but 2 different processes that people do. When you put it that way, most of us in here are leaders and managers. Okay? It's not that the president of the university is the only leader or the only manager. It's a team sport, as I said before. So how do we get things done in any kind of organization? I like to think, people have all kinds of different directions, different motivations. I want to go here. I want to go there. I want to go to class. I want to go to the beach. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so they all have different ideas of where they ought to be going, where the organization ought to be going. What happens in my mind is that somebody comes up from the group. Notice I said somebody. I didn't say the leader. It doesn't have to be the leader. It could be anybody. And articulates a clear and appealing vision. Some clearly defined end state that's better than where we are now. I think we ought to be over there. It's somebody that says that it's a great hope held in common, but you articulate that, and people see it. And when people see it, they're attracted to it. And as they get attracted to it, they're kind of getting on board. And you notice they're not all fully aligned yet. They're not all heading in that direction. They still want to do their own thing a little bit. But as time goes on and they see the importance of that vision, they sort of organize, and then eventually they can move out and achieve or move toward that vision. That's how I think a vision works. It takes time, but it has to be clearly articulated. It has to be out there, and we have to move toward it. It's a team sport. One person cannot do all the leadership. It requires a team. And so when I went to my previous organization, what I found was that 3 people basically made all the decisions in the organization. It was like the 3 guys in a smoke-filled room, and they would make budget decisions and people decisions and space decisions and all of those things. And I said, that's interesting, but I don't want it to be that way where I am. So I expanded the president's cabinet to include more people, to include meeting more frequently, to being a little bit more open. And then I created an organization called the University Council that included a lot of people. And it included almost every agency. It included classified employees, non-classified employees. It included students. And you notice I have those asterisks. I told the leaders, I told the student government president, and I told the other people that are in the I said, you want to bring more people? That's up to you. You don't have just one seat at that table. You have as many as you need to bring. And so they did. It was a very big group, but we met every other week. I told them, if you think we're meeting too much, tell me. No, they never told me. And we got a lot of information out. We made some decisions and enhanced communication. But there's 3 other areas that I thought needed special attention. And so I did some structural change there too. Money, right? Everybody talks about money. Money, people, and space or facilities. And so I created 3 more groups. One was the Budget Review Committee. The Budget Review Committee had broad representation. It had faculty representation, it had staff representation, it had student representation, and it was chaired by the provost and by the vice president for finance and administration. And they met frequently, not every week or 2 weeks, but frequently, at least once a semester, maybe a little bit more than that. And they reviewed the budget. They had never looked at budget before. They had never been given the budget. We gave them the budget. They reviewed that, and they made recommendations. And they made tough recommendations, smart recommendations. And I remember, I didn't go to the meetings unless they asked me to go, and sometimes they did. But it was important to me that at one point in time, the student representatives and the faculty representatives kind of got into it, a little bit about what we should be doing. And that's the way it ought to be. The other thing was we started a personnel review board. So when somebody goes someplace else, somebody retires, you create a vacancy, or you're starting a new program and you want to create some positions, you have to say, is this in the best interest of the institution? And so we were just, again, a couple of people making that decision, not really controlled. But what we did was we put together a board that then looked at that and said, do we need to add this position? And they didn't do the selection, they didn't pick the actual face, but they recommended authorize the space to do it. And so again, broad representation. And then the third one was the space utilization board. When you have a building or you have an office and somebody moves out of it, everybody wants to move into it, particularly if it has a nice view and air conditions. So we created a board that looked at that. So now what we did was we involved a lot more people in the decision-making process, a lot more people to have some sort of control over the important things at the university. One of the things that I stressed in all of these groups, and maybe even more so in selection committees for positions, search committees, was the idea of consensus. And so I had a couple of principles, and when I briefed these groups at the very beginning, I would tell them these things. First of all views heard and discussed. If you were selected for this committee, or if you volunteered for this committee, your view is just as important as anybody else's view. Doesn't matter what your level is, or whether you're a student or a faculty or a dean or whatever. If you're in that committee, your view is just as important as anybody else's. So all views should be heard and discussed. Voting is avoided. Think about that. Voting is avoided.
commit, you know, I had a lot of times when they say, we made this selection and we did this on a vote of 7-6. I go, well, that's not a very strong recommendation, is it? You know? So one vote, you got it? So I would discourage them, particularly with search committees. Don't come in and tell me, hey, guess what? We just picked a new athletic director, you know, and it was 7-6. No, I don't want to hear it. I said, when you get to that point where you can't talk it out and get consensus, come get me. I'm right down the hall. Come get me. I'll come in, we'll work, we'll talk, and we'll try to get to some sort of consensus without voting. Sometimes you have to. I got it. Sometimes you have to vote. But if it's ever a close vote, you probably haven't talked enough. All agree, all members of the group agree that the decision is the group's decision. They don't agree that it's the best decision in the possibility of the world. They don't agree that it's my decision, but they do agree it's the group's decision. And they do agree that they all now own that decision. If you can't do that, what do? Keep talking, right? You keep talking. All understand and can explain the decision. This might be the most important one. So you go back to your organization, you're representing some organization, and your group, your club, or whatever it is, and you're in a meeting, and you say, well, here's the decision, we're going to do this. And somebody in the group says, why? If you can't explain that, you're in a bad place, right? So part of the deal is before you leave that group, that you can understand and explain the decision. Here's what we did, here's why we did it, and that we own it. Strategic planning is critical. I believe in strategic planning. I think it's most critical. Does anybody know what this is? Mount Rushmore? No, it's not. Well, I thought it was Mount Rushmore too. But I gave a presentation once to some surveyors. Do you know what surveyors, any surveyors in the United States? Do you know what surveyors call this? 3 surveyors and some other guy. Okay? Because of Mount Rushmore, of the 4 presidents that are depicted, 3 of them were professional surveyors. Well, I heard that, and I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. How could it be that when they made Mount Rushmore, they thought these were the 4 most important people we've ever had in our country, and 3 of them were professional surveyors? What is it about surveyors that makes them so good? So I thought about it, and I thought about surveyors doing their work, being out there in the field, and what they had to do. And I came up with 3 points, and I said, well, there are some keys to success if you're a surveyor. First of all, you got to know where you are. And surveyors know where they are, right? Because they got those magic things, right? So then you have to know the terrain. You have to know the folds of the terrain, where it goes this way, where it goes that way, where it's easiest to go, where it's hardest to go. And then you have to know where you're going. In other words, at the end of all of that, you build a map. So I've applied that to strategic planning. And that's what I've done in my organizations in the past. The strategic planning, we built a strategy map to tell us how to get through all the stuff we have to get through and get to our goals. I assemble, again, I like big groups. A lot of people don't. You've heard it said many times, you've got a big group, it takes you forever, and everyone wants to talk, like that. Fine. But I like big groups because it involves more people. You get some ideas. I can tell you things that people said in some of these big groups that I go, where did that come from? That's like really, really good stuff. Never would have heard it with a smaller group. So we get a lot of people in the room. And then we start slowly going through the strategic planning process. We articulate vision, we articulate a mission, we articulate the goals and objectives, and we build a strategy map. And then we can put our entire strategic plan on one page. And this is the page from my previous institution. Obviously, it did not have a green background, it had a red one, but that's okay too. And so on this we have the vision, we have the mission, we have our goals, and then we have 15 objectives. These are things that we know will be a better institution if we do these things. And behind each of these objectives, each objective has an objective champion. And when we meet to discuss that, objective champion stands up and says, here's the report, here's how we're doing. And each objective has key performance indicators. We talk about we wanted to have 50%, we're at 40%, we got to do better. Okay, finally, celebrate success, own shortfalls. And I say, you know, if we did something good, all of you did it, okay? If something we came up short, I'll take the heat, okay? But that's how we do it. And so I like to celebrate success. First of all, if it's accreditation, it's a team sport. Everybody was part of it. Celebrate that. If it's a club, if it's an organization that's doing something great on campus, we celebrate that. If we've gotten some grant and it's going to bring great value to the institution, we celebrate that. Faculty need to be celebrated. When they write a book, when they get recognized by their professional organizations, we celebrate that. When faculty go and get some kind of increase learning and they come back and they're applying that and making better students out of it, we celebrate that. But what about the people that clean the floors? What about the people that cut the trees outside? What about the people that mow the grass? We need to celebrate them too. Because I bet you that some of you made your decision to come to this institution because you said, wow, this place really looks cool. And I've heard that. I've heard people, my former students, that would say, it looks so beautiful, it looks so wonderful, it's so inviting. And it's because of the people that keep it that way. We never need to forget them. And then students, of course, we always celebrate the students when if they do something like get something published, or if they have athletic success, or if they make a presentation to some other school or some other place or whatever in the community showing what they can do, or they do some academic work, they get a paper accepted to a journal, or their club does a great job and gets recognition, or alumni. At the end of the road, believe it or not, there's such a thing called alumni. You walk across the stage and all of a sudden you're an alumnus or an alumna. And they do great things. We need to celebrate them as well. And then, we need to continue to do that. And then if we have programs that involve other places that we said we wanted to do, we need to celebrate that as well. And finally, if we do all of that, enrollment goes up, retention goes up, and at the end of the line, we have more, better graduates going out into the workforce, doing great, wonderful things for fantastic careers. So that's my leadership philosophy. I hope I didn't spend too much time on it, but one last word. In the prospectus for this position, it said that it will be absolutely essential that the new president understands and respects the local culture and is prepared to humbly earn the respect of the people. And I take that to heart. And in case you didn't guess it by now, I was not born in Guam, and I've not lived here, okay? Yeah. But I have lived on 3 continents. I have worked on 3 continents. And I have taught on 5 continents. I've done workshops and seminars and so forth. And for each of those things that's up there, that's marked up there, I had to learn the culture, I had to accept the culture, I had to respect the culture, and integrate with that culture. So I've got experience in doing that. No, not with Guam yet, but with other places, and I think that transfers. Finally, you've probably seen my education before, so I've been to some schools, and I've had experiences that generally typically qualify you to be a president. With that, are we at that point? Did I speak slower this time? A little bit slower? Okay, yeah, a couple more times. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Murphy. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have a question for Dr. Murphy from the audience? Okay.
If there's no questions, I'm going to do it all over again.
One last call for questions? Okay.
Yes.
Gentlemen in the back.
Good afternoon, Dr. Murphy. My name is John. I actually work for the university. My question actually is, in regards to the University of Guam, we have various sources of funding. To generalize it, we have funding from the government of Guam, from various sponsored programs and research grants. What is your, I guess, take on our specific educational institutions' financial sustainability? That's my question.
I think it's healthier than a lot of people think. The idea of government funding going down is probably what's behind the question. That is a phenomenon that's happening everywhere. That is not unique to Guam. That's not unique to Louisiana. That is happening everywhere in the United States. Okay, so the amount of public funding for public higher education has been decreasing steadily. When I first got to Nicholls State University, it had endured a period of about 8 or 9 years of steady decline. And prior to that, about maybe 10 years earlier, the relationship of government, of state funding, was 75%, and students paid about 25% through tuition and fees. By the time I left there, it was exactly reversed. Students were paying 75% of the cost of their education, and the state was paying about actually a little bit less than 25%. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can tear your hair out and give up, or you can try some other things. And so as president, it's part of my job to work with the legislature to try to get them to understand the value of higher education and their responsibility in funding it. It's up to me to try to control costs as much as possible. We've tried to do that in areas that I've been associated with. And then you've got to look for alternative sources. So grants are great, tuition is great, but nobody wants to go up. But there are other sources as well. So for example, In Louisiana, we had a program in petroleum engineering and safety management. And so we were able to get funding from oil companies. Oil companies, we're producing professionals for their business. One of the things they can do is to help us with that. So how can they help? They're not going to just shovel money for us to fix roofs or build a gym or something. So, but specific to that program, they gave us money for a simulator, very expensive simulator that our students found very good, and our alumni said, if we'd have had that, we were going through, but I'd have been 5 years ahead when I first got my job. They can also do things like scholarships, and they do that and so forth. Those kind of entities typically don't give unrestricted funds to the universities. They do what you want. So it's not like just fill up the bucket. They want to be targeted. So the president's job is to work with deans and chairs and professors and students. The students are great salespeople too, and go out and to find those things. Another example, I know you have any nursing students here? No? So that's hopeful too. In nursing, we wanted to make the program bigger. Nursing shortage all over the place, but we didn't have the capacity. So we used some of our own funds to knock out some walls and put in some things, and then we went to seek donors that we knew were interested in healthcare stuff, and we got them to come up and give several $100,000 each for a computer lab in there and for some more of the human simulators and some other kinds of stuff. So you have to be very targeted. You have to know what you want. You have to know who to approach. You always have to be on the public side because you can't let them off the hook. This is a public institution. It's a public responsibility. And so you have to talk to the legislators and you have to talk to business people. And the best people to talk to business people are who? Say it. Say it. Students. Okay, if you engage students, you have a lunch, we're going to recognize somebody, and we're going to have a student sit next to the business person, and they're going to have a great conversation. At the end of the day, then they are psyched about the education, about what's going on, and then they become advocates. They become advocates for that program, for that student. I have had folks that you link up with a student or you link up with a faculty member on the spot say, I want to pay for that program. So there are other ways to do it. I think that the university is it's not overflowing with money, I know that, okay? And the outlook is that it's going to be tough times ahead too. I got that. But I don't think it's not as bad as some other places. What else?
Okay, next question, please. Okay, so I'm going to ask one last time, and if there are no questions, I'm going to end the forum. So, ladies and gentlemen, one last question for Dr. Murphy.
One last. Yes.
Hi again.
Hi again.
So, as you know, we are in the current state of affairs here. There's a lot of rampant discussion of political status and decolonization. What do you see the university's role as your president in being involved with this very important political issue? Please response.
That's an excellent. Everybody give the microphone. I've given that a little bit of thought. I am not expert enough to know the ins and the outs of that, but here's what I do think. I think it's the university's role to educate students, to educate the next generation. And if there is a political discussion, I went to a university when there was a political discussion about a war. Okay, I went to the University of California, Berkeley, you may have heard of it. And I went there during the Vietnam War. There's a lot of discussions. The university had a major role. There was discussions in all the classes. There was demonstrations on campus. There was I think universities exist to have that kind of dialogue. And it's the role of students to try to understand as best they can. And so bringing on speakers, bringing on divergent points to discuss the issue, to have a place where students can really understand what's going on and what are some next steps. From what I understand, it's an extremely important and extremely sensitive issue. And I think that the university needs to take place in there. Needs to say this is a place where we can have discussions. This is a place where we can have our experts, our faculty, talk about things. Where does this fit historically? Where does this fit from a political science perspective? Where does this fit from just a social, cultural perspective? We've got all the resources here. We've got all the brain power here to put it all together. I think that it's absolutely appropriate for the university to take a leadership role in it.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Next question, please.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Murphy. welcome to Guam.
Thank you.
My name is Jade. I'm over at Professional and International Programs. I'm a newer outreach coordinator, so I'm also new to UOG. But I grew up here, though, that's the difference. I wanted to ask, what is your greatest accomplishment, and can you relate that to the University of Guam?
That's a really tough question. I think from an accomplishment standpoint, it has to be a challenge. So those times in my life when I've been challenged, I've had some things that have been just happening. I walked out of a room, came back, I was elected president of my fraternity. I didn't even know I was in the running. I don't consider that an accomplishment. That's nice, but I don't consider that an accomplishment because I didn't learn anything I tried to do. I've tried to do some things like when I was young, college, just out of college, I went to Ranger School and completed that. That, to me, that was a great accomplishment. I think it does apply. I've used that lessons from then because it taught me that I can do anything. It taught me that if there's a challenge, I have to be prepared, study, and work for it, and I can accomplish things that I never thought I could before. So that's a great challenge. I have a student of mine that I worked with very closely when I was at Vanderbilt, and he's now a named professor at Harvard. He has his own lab. He's had TED Talks. If you want to look this guy up, his name is Kit Parker. Look Kit Parker TED, and you'll get a TED Talk, and you'll see what he's done. He's a student of mine. So years later, I re-engaged him, and from Nichols, I connected him with some of our students. And last summer, one of our students at Nichols went to his lab at Harvard and interned in that lab. Came back, learned a lot, all that kind of stuff. And so this summer he's going up there full-time. He's going to be working full-time in that lab, and he's also going to complete a master's degree at Harvard while he's doing that. Now, that's not my accomplishment, okay? That's really his accomplishment. But I look at that, and as a professional educator, I can't think of too many things much more significant than that. But I have impacted sort of a couple different levels of lives that are doing great and wonderful things in education. Does that work?
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Next question. Okay, last call for the next question.
Right up front.
I'm a master's student in psychology, and you set up a very you have a very impressive speech and with the philosophy of vision and shared this sounds like you could be successful anywhere, but what draws you to Guam, and what are your visions?
Let me take the second part first about my vision for the university, because that's a question that's typically asked at a thing like this. I cannot articulate a vision for the university because I haven't worked with everybody that I need to work with. You saw how I come up with a vision. It's a long time. It's a long process. I have to listen a lot. I have to understand a lot before we do that. The other part is what attracted me to Guam. Well, after I left my previous institution, I was looking for someplace where I thought I could make a difference. And the University of Guam appeared to be one of those. First of all, you're in the market for a president, right? So that's kind of requirement number one. 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been impossible because it wasn't there. But it's out there. So now I start looking. And as I look at the University of Guam, I always look for I call them gems, or what are some things that could make this institution distinguished? What are some things that maybe they already have distinguished that need to be amplified and broadcasted? So things like the marine biology and the research that goes on and those kinds of things that can attract students from all over the world, that can attract faculty from all over the world. Because some of the things that you can do here on Guam, this is the only university here, right? So some of the things you can do here, you can't do anywhere else. How about the Chamorro culture program? How about that? That website that I showed up there, how many people are on it? Did I ask that question already? How many people are on it? Yeah, we asked that question already. You know how many people are on it? I said this. 7,800 people are on that. 7,800 people are somehow attracted to that website at your university. And they're not all from Guam. Relatively few of them are from Guam. But 7,800 people have some interest. We can capitalize on that. Okay, think about the aspects of culture, think about the aspects of geography, think about the aspects of biology that can all be incorporated into a program, and this would probably be online because those 1,700 people are all, I've seen where they're from, are from all over the world. But that's something that we can share. So there are certain just unique aspects of this university that I think can be capitalized on. I think can be developed even more and be used to attract more students, to attract more faculty, to attract more resources, quite frankly. Okay?
Next question. Okay, last call. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentation with Dr. Bruce Murphy. How about a round of applause? And I also want you to know that there is a survey that you can fill out that will end on June 16th. That's this Saturday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much, ladies.
So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that everybody came out. So thank you so much. Okay.